So, we're on page 14. We're talking about the three different righteous people who were celebrating Shabbat. The third one, we mentioned that he might not even eat, or will eat very little on Shabbat, so that it doesn't interrupt his bond with Hashem, so it doesn't interrupt his connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So says Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, but what about eating? He's not going to be nourished, he's not going to be satisfied. Says Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, v'sof darko, at the end of the day, at the end of his journey, ultimately, השיג בפנימיותו יראת השם ואהבת שמיים ותשוקת אל חי עד כדי כך שאפילו איברי גופו תובעים את מזונם. אינו מרגיש רעב. He says that he will ultimately reach this place of reverence, love, yearning for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that even if his organs they're hungry, they want to eat, he won't physically feel hungry. Because his neshama is already satisfied from that which he spiritually consumed. Like King David says, my soul will be satiated as with fat in abundance. He didn't have to eat, but it was a certain spiritual place that he reached that he wasn't hungry. Now this could be very similar to, by the way, if a person, God forbid, you may know, has ever been in a mood, just not in a good mood, you're in a bad mood. And a person in a bad mood, they lose their appetite. It's not because they're not hungry, physically, but there's something else that is filling them right now, that there is no room for food. That's a negative understanding of this. The positive understanding would be that a person is so connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's feeling so satiated with his relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he doesn't need to eat anything. He feels as if he's already at that stage where he's completely full of something. And sometimes people will be excited for an interview or they'll be excited to go somewhere. To see, they won't be eating, they won't be drinking. It's that same feeling, but on a very organized and dedicated level. V'kolot mitdapkim al ozno v'hu tafus b'sar apav v'lo yishma'em. There might be sounds that his ears will hear, but he will be too preoccupied to hear them. Chacham Ovadia Yosef was like this. When he would learn, he pretty much disappeared. I mean, the many stories of the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, even now, he would go visit Chacham Ovadia, and Chacham Ovadia wouldn't even realize that he was standing next to him. Everyone says, Arav, Rosh HaMamshala, the Prime Minister is here. He said, Shalom Aleichem, and the Prime Minister said, don't interrupt him. He's continuing the legacy of the Jewish people. That's what he would tell. And the same thing, Ammar, there's a famous video of the Sephardi Chief Rabbi coming to visit Chacham Ovadia. Chacham Ovadia didn't even realize there was someone standing next to him. He was so preoccupied. I mean, his ears heard, but he didn't really hear because he was totally immersed into something else. Now, there's a limit to this. You probably know the famous Hasidic story about the Tzemach Tzedek and his, I believe it was his grandfather, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek was learning, and his baby was crying, and he didn't hear the baby crying. And his grandfather came down, took care of the baby, and put him back to bed. And said, the baby was crying. I said, I was so immersed in my learning. He said, when you're so immersed in your learning that you don't hear another person crying, then it's not the proper way to be learning. There's a deep message in that. But this ability to truly become preoccupied. I told you this story before, that I once went to visit Arav Peretz at around 11 o'clock in the morning. He was exhausted, he could barely speak. I said, Arav, what happened? He said, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he woke up, he had to use the restroom. And then as he was coming out of the bathroom, he found of a halakha and the laws of mourning. That he was writing a book. A question came up to him that he couldn't go to sleep, he wanted to look it up. So he looked up the question, they said before he knew it, already someone came to his door to take him to Shacharit, so he just didn't. He said he forgot to go back to sleep. There's such a thing. There are people who are extremely immersed in their connection with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
No sense of time.
Absolutely.
It's like all of a sudden hours passed, and it's like the Haggadah.
Right, no, very good. The Haggadah is a perfect
Shema.
example of this, right? But they didn't know that it was time for Shema. They were so preoccupied in the Seder night that it had come already time for them to say Shema. You should hope one day to have a Seder once in your life before you leave this world. Maybe it's after you finish your mitzvah of chinuch. You have to deal with your kids and you have to have a Seder for them that's exciting and put them to bed at a normal hour. But there has to be a point in your life where you say, okay, I did my seders that are community service. I want some snedarim once in your life. You should have a seder that you didn't go to sleep until Shacharit for. But not stay up the whole night. Stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not chit-chattering about what was on the news. Really in a connection with people. Maybe just your wife and some good friends or people that are, you know what I'm talking about. It's the time you don't invite every schlepper on the street to come join you at the seder. You really choose, you handpick who is going to be with you on the seder night. These 4 rabbis that were sitting together, and they chose each other. They knew what they wanted. They knew the experience they wanted. And there was my grandfather's yard tent this week. So I actually met my wife because I tried to do such a seder. They tell you in the Mekubalim say, whenever you try to do something good, the Yetzer Hara is always going to come and stop you. Sometimes the Yetzer Hara tries to stop you, and really he doesn't realize that he's working for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what happened was that I planned 1 year not to go home for Pesach. I was going to stay in Israel. The reason, I told my parents, listen, I come home every year. I'm already getting to this age where next year I might get married. I don't know what's going to happen. I want to have one Pesach just with my chavrutot, my close friends in yeshiva. I want to do a Yerushalayim seder, not a San Diego seder. I don't want to say L'shana Haba Yerushalayim and lie. I want to mean it. So my parents agreed, and I stayed in Yerushalayim. I already arranged with my friends. We were going to, mamash, the whole night just talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We had divrei Torah that we prepared, and we had a nice group of people. We had a place ready to do it. We were arranging meals, who was going to make what, the whole thing. Before Pesach, I was on a trip to Poland. I went to go do a religious version of March on the Living. And my grandmother was very sick at the time in the hospital. And I asked her permission if I could leave Israel. She was very, very sick. And she told me to go. She told me she's still going to be by my wedding, so I shouldn't worry. She said she's going to dance at my wedding. And I was in I'll never forget, we were in a concentration camp. I got a phone call from Israel that my grandmother had passed away. It's hard enough to hear such news, but to hear that in that kind of place is it's not even a normal feeling. What ended up happening was right before Pesach. So my mother was there, they were sitting Shiva, there was a Shloshim, the unveiling of the tomb. My mother decided to stay in Israel for the whole time and spend Pesach with me. There went the plans to do a Pesach Seder with my chevra.
The next year you're married.
Okay, listen, this is what you know what you need for the world. We went to do Pesach with my mother's family in Athlete. And we're a beautiful family, but we have, Seder is done differently where we come from than what they do. Kol hakavod, they do a Seder, but we have a little slightly different style of doing the Seder. I never in my life been filmed before on an iPhone conducting the Seder. That kind of experience. Baruch Hashem, but it's a beautiful thing. So many people are doing a Seder. This was my year, my year to do a Seder. After that holiday, I told my mother, listen, I'm happy that we do another second half of the holiday again, but a change of scenery, please. So we decided to go to Tzfat. We had good friends at Tzfat. She was actually here at the Shabbat. Julie Abrams, if you remember her. Morris, Moshe, Eli. I changed the names a few times. And we decided to go do Pesach with them. We spent Pesach with them in Tzfat.
Morris Abrams is like his wife? Or
his wife was here. He passed away.
His new wife, you mean? Or is it like a second wife? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
She was just here visiting?
Right now, this Shabbat, she was at my house.
Wow.
So, I think she's still here. I don't know. She wasn't sleeping bed. She just visited us. We spent Pesach with them. There's a reason for this whole stuff. And that was the famous seminar that I gave at Tzfat, where this Rebbitzin came to scream at me and tell me she doesn't like that I'm a single guy teaching ladies. And she came to scream at me, so she came to the audience. And after the class, she came over and told me, listen, I know why people come to study from me. I actually enjoyed this lecture very much. Next time, would you please come and do the lecture at my house? And then she followed up that she has a girl for me, and put a long story short, that was Dvorah. I never went to Tzfat. I was never planning on being Tzfat and doing a seminar. Like, Tzfat was not my scene. I was a Yerushalayim guy. Tzfat was too much for me. It was like, Tzfat is people who overdosed on Yerushalayim, so they sent them to Tzfat to get away a little bit, and then over there they went crazy. So that's the experience of Tzfat. If it wasn't for my grandmother passing away, and if it wasn't for my mother coming to Israel, and if it wasn't for me not having that Seder, and if it wasn't for, I probably would have never met my wife. Or Hashem would have had to put other hoops jumping together. And I was thinking that my grandmother was my shadchan, whether or not I understand. Her passing led to something different. There's a certain connection that you can come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and realize that sometimes you'll plan and you'll plan and you'll plan, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu has other plans for you. But you have to at least plan. So plan once in your life to have a set out, to do it right, to do something correct. You never know what the Yetzer Hara is going to throw you away, but it could be that what he'll throw you away sometimes it's better than the plan. What would my life be worth if I had done that Seder night and I wouldn't be married? It wouldn't be worth much. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to trust him a little bit. Ve'nav noflot al chezionot shel mamash. Sometimes you'll even see things. Uchmo tachu me'otam, and it's as if he doesn't even see them. There's an old rabbi in the old city. His name is Rabbi Nevinsal. Have you heard of him before? Rabbi Nevinsal? He's the chief rabbi of the old city of Yerushalayim. He was one of the primary students of Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. This is a tzaddik that doesn't he doesn't really live in this world. According to his students, when he sleeps in his chair, he's actually on the Bedin Shel Mala, on the heavenly court. He claims he's never studied Kabbalah before, but the whole set of Zohar at his house is worn out to pieces. But you ask him, I don't know what you're talking about. He walks through the old city. He has these paperback Gemaras, tiny paperback Gemaras. He walks through the old city reading them. He's an old man, reading them like this in his face. He just walks through the streets. Who guides him? Because who guides him? Today he's already too old to officially be the chief rabbi, so they passed it on to the next chief rabbi. But a big tzaddik. His son once came to him and said, "Father, there's a lot of pretzels. You know what pretzels is? Pretzels, not pretzels. Pretzels, you know pretzels?
Princess.
You ever heard them scream, pretzels? Pretzot literally means breaks in the fence. It's what Haredi culture uses to refer to immodest behavior, relationships, dress. It's pretzels. It's like the word prust. You heard the word prust before?
It's basically a rock throwing opportunity.
Right, it's where you would go to throw a rock. Too much pretzels is going on. So he asked Rav Nevinsal, finally, the old city is not the holy place it used to be. I mean, there are crazy things going on in the old city. Tourists and the seminaries and the yeshivas and the after hours and the drinking and the... So he told Rav Nevinsal, Father, what are we going to do about the pretzels here in the old city?
Actually, very nice.
And Rav Nevinsal, who walks around the old city all day long, he looked and he said, what pretzels in the old city? He said, what do you mean what pretzels? I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I've never seen anything bad in this town. And it's not that he was naive. Just sometimes there are people whose eyes don't see the things your eyes are seeing. They can walk by something and not notice. Once Perez and I were walking, there was one of these chassids walking like this, covering his eyes, as soon as he shouldn't see the ladies. Oh, Perez, you see this man? He's a Rasha. He said, what? He's trying to guard his eyes? He said, no, he's not trying to guard his eyes. Why? How does he know how to cover his eyes? Must be he saw something already. If he had to have seen it to know what to cover that. So the guy says, Rabbi, I'm going to watch a movie. I'll cover my eyes during the bad parts. How do you know when the bad parts are going to be? They told you that. You already saw, so you know. It's a certain... The higher level would be to walk and not see anything.
No.
To walk and to not notice the things that you're not supposed to be noticing. There was a Rebbe that came here to San Diego. I don't remember exactly his name, but something to the effect of like the Dezherker Rebbe. He was a student of Rabbi Baruch Ashlag, who was the son of the famous Rabbi Ashlag, who wrote the Sunnah. He was a Hasidic Rebbe. He learned by Rav Kapach, also, which was an interesting thing. A Kabbalist who studied by a Yemenite anti-Kabbalist. And and he came here to San Diego. So he said, what should we do in San Diego? What is there to do? So someone told him, well, San Diego is famous for its beaches, but I don't think the Rebbe wants to hang around the beach. That's why I said, there's too much pretzels on the beach. Got a new word today. Too much pretzels on the beach. So the Rebbe said, who says we have to look? Yeah. That was the attitude. Like, wait, I'm going to stop going to the world because of things I shouldn't see. So I am training myself, certain things I don't see. That's the whole point. So here, there's a person who reaches this lofty level. Uvazot yagia b'darkom hamyuchedet el mechoz chevtzo umasat nafsho. And through this journey, he'll reach the goal and his hope, his ultimate desire, k'mo shneimar, l'shimcha u'lizichrecha ta'avat nefesh. That for you and your name and your remembrance is the desire of the soul. אין ספק כי גדול ורב ההבדל בין דרך השלישי בשמירת השבת ומדרך השני just like this third lofty way of keeping Shabbat, where you're so connected that you're completely disconnected, is very different from the already lofty second chassid. And how much more so, v'chen rava evdel ben derech hashni v'harishon, from the second one to the first level. V'alachat kama v'chama, gadol ha'evdel ben derech hashlishi v'harishon. How much more so is the difference between the first path and the third path, but they're all under the intimate category. They're all in the special road. But there are different levels in the special road, everyone according to his way. Okay, so tomorrow we'll see a second understanding here about how you can have a higher level in kashrut and in such things. God willing, that's for tomorrow. I believe that mankind's biggest blunder is that we are taught to believe that there are certain things that are out of our control. I can't control what I think. I can only control what I say. It's not true. I can also control. I can't control what I feel. I can only control what I show people. That's also not true. You have complete control over yourself. You just have to train yourself to be in complete control over yourself.
But most people believe the opposite. That they have
Absolutely. Even this idea that I was mad, that's why I said it. You have control. You have control over yourself to be mad.
You have to be conscious. You have to be aware to do that.
Right. But it's hard to
Not
live
to
a life
just
where you're
express
fully
a feeling
conscious.
is just an automatic robotic thing.
Sure.
This thing came over me and I have to express it. No, it's
But you don't have to.
no.
It's like when someone says,
You don't even have
when
to
someone
feel
says,
that way in the
"Can I
first
tell you something?"
Yeah.
What if I say no? Will you still not tell me something? Can I tell you something? No. They're going to tell you anyways. This person is not in control of themselves, and they're not really asking you a question. But people are taught they're taught that they're so small, and it's not true. It's not true. You are the greatest creation that God created. The angels can accomplish what we can accomplish, but we don't believe that. When I tell that to you, you think, "Oh yeah, right, sure." That's what every rabbi says, that we feel good about ourselves. It's not true. Moshe Rabbeinu is higher than any angel that ever lived. What?
You have to be awake.
You have to be awake, but being awake is difficult. People like to sleep and take naps and then to sleep again.
Well,
and
I don't mean taking naps.
no, I mean in a conscious level. It's hard for people to be fully conscious. It's hard to be mentally awake, to be self-aware
But the whole
all the
idea
time.
of amusement and TV is to deaden the...
Dumb your brain. Sure. But I'm aware, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm aware that some people sometimes they'll need an escape. I don't. Some people need that 45 minutes, that hour they sit and watch a movie. I don't whatever they need it for whatever. This person sometimes needs to drink and go sit at a bar or whatever it is that a person needs. But when you're always doing that, when someone can come home from work and they sit on the TV and they watch TV from when they get home and they half-mindedly heat up some dinner in the microwave and they fall asleep on their couch. It's a culture that teaches you to dumb your brain down. Don't become who you really can become. And we're all victims of it on some level.
Well,
Even if,
the thing is, in the Torah world, I think there's a lot of development of consciousness. We're not seeing the body as consciousness. The body is also thinks. Before modern culture, consciousness wasn't just in the moach, in the brain, inside the skull. It was the whole body. The liver considers, the kidneys decide, so forth.
right. Well,
Consciousness
you
was
saw
a
here,
physical
for example,
thing, too.
the third chassid, his whole desire was to eat less because that got in the way of his body connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.